All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Rakugo, Season 2, Episode 11.
The penultimate episode.
Mm-hmm.
And
that worries me. Just a little bit.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Yep.
We had a lot of really wholesome reconciliation and not complete full, like, everything resolved entirely between Konatsu and Yakumo, but gratitude, just a really healthy, stable place in where they're at, like way more than they've ever been in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Konatsu's pregnant.
Yep.
With Yotaro's kid.
There's a second kid on the way.
He yotaed into her, actually, like another little Yota, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's just funny because, like, that's his nickname, right? Like Sukeroku is more the actual name he's been given now, but it's just kind of crazy because we are now like
coming
all the way full circle.
But does that mean that like Yakumo's gonna die soon? Because like eventually that kind of does have to happen since that's where the story started and everything. But
yeah,
I'm not ready. So hopefully we can put it off another week.
I think so. I think that if they're going to have Yakumo pass away, it will be in the very last episode.
I'm hoping.
And they'll probably time it a little bit with when this baby gets born.
Yeah.
If not, then I'd say it's going to be a long while after the baby gets born, because they do a lot of time skips in between episodes in this show.
Very true.
And I would say the big kind of thing that needs to happen with Yakumo is kind of having him forgive himself in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So having a little bit of exploration within himself and having him use maybe one other character that's present to be kind of the person that is the reason why he talks about it or brings it up.
Yeah. Instigator of some sort or
Yeah, exactly. Which means it'll probably be Yotaro or Konatsu or maybe even Matsuda. I don't know.
Okay, Matsuda, that would be awesome.
Matsuda would be really wholesome.
I don't think that's going to happen, but it could.
It could. We'll see. But yeah, we're almost done, y'all. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion. What a brilliant twist of things, because we've been so used to seeing Yakumo kind of enter into this alternative space. We assumed that this was kind of just another dream or what have you.
Yeah.
But no, that was him dying.
Right. And
he wasn't passed away.
Right. It wasn't something where it's like, once you get to the top, you'll have accepted that you're dead kind of a thing, which they did deal with the acceptance of, death and all of that, but it had already happened. That's amazing. And then we ended up getting the most clever way for them to actually have Yakumo then exploring the past and reconciling it by having literally him go through the past in almost a very linear kind of way. Yep. With
Sukeroku and Miyokichi. And even Konatsu and Shinsan and Shinchan at the very end. That was just that's how you hit the feels. And there is no Yotaro, there is no Konatsu in the present day in this world. It's just him basically going on his way, moving on. And so that's it. Wow.
It's something that is absolutely perfect as far as a way to showcase and have Yakumo go on this journey, because that was something that I was really wondering how they were going to do. Getting him to fully reconcile and feel at peace with his past and all of that and everything that had happened.
Yeah.
In a way that was more than just, okay, the show needs to end here, so there you go, right?
Away, yeah.
He passes away, and at some point he comes to some emotional level of, catharsis, but
wow.
How lasting and how deep can that really be? If it's just something that he just concludes, right? Whereas here, because of using, the spirits of everybody, right, and going back through his life and looking at it all, it's a picture is worth 1,000 words kind of a thing, right? Because the way I thought it was going to be is it would be some amount of Yakumo's musings or the like, you know, like sort of just thinking to himself or talking to someone or something like that. And that would be how it would end, and that would be how we knew that it was resolved. Sure. But here, this is so much better. This is so much better.
This is way better.
Yeah. And the thing is that there's a part of me that I'm blown away, not just with how it was done, but that this was how it was decided to be done. Because usually I feel like there are plenty of examples that I can think of in fiction where the spirit of someone that had passed away comes to visit, you know, one of the characters and helps them get closure, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Like it's good. It works, right?
Yep.
But never when they were dead. And I'm not sure why that should have so much additional impact. Maybe it's because we've spent so much time with these characters, you know? We've seen them go on this journey, you know?
Yeah.
But, man.
Yeah, I think the main reason why you do it, and this is an incredible reason why you have characters that are in a situation where when they've died, they get to go back and look at their past, not literally, but kind of think about it and talk about it and go, yeah, I have a completely different perspective on that now because I have no fears or boundaries anymore.
Right.
Everything is fine. It's over.
Yep.
Time has no meaning, really. It's it.
And the characters are still very much themselves, you know.
But they're completely different.
They're completely different
because
but it's something. It feels like something where they've both grown, but not so much so that it feels disconnected from who they were, if that makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, growing is a good way to look at it, but I just think of it as like all the false pretenses and things that people do because they're afraid.
Right.
Why would you be afraid when you're dead?
Yeah.
It's over. There are no consequences that can affect you. The way Miyokichi basically was the perfect representation of this.
Yeah.
There are all these things that Miyokichi had to deal with that put her into positions where she wasn't being true to herself.
Sure.
And here we just get to see her true to herself.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain why she's true to herself other than she's dead.
Right.
It's a really efficient way to showcase a character fully realized.
Yeah.
Because this is not them. This is their spirit that's lingering on in the afterlife. They are already gone.
Well, and because the things that really stood out to me with how they dealt with that was one, the bit with Miyokichi, right, which is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The other one was with Tsukuroku still trying to bum money off of Yakumo, right? And because I guess in the afterlife you still need money.
There's an economy, I guess.
Yeah, there's an economy, whatever. Sure, yeah, there you go. But the idea that their dynamic hadn't really changed, right? Because a lot of it was based like because when I think about Tsukuroku's flaws, right? You know, and the fact that say Miyokichi was still, you know, serving tea, you know, to earn money for, you know, paying their way across, and Tsukuroku, you know, would get bribed with the, you know, go, you know, play around for half an hour or whatever, you know, here's some money.
Right. Yeah.
And yet he stuck around and watched them the entire time, you know. Like that's
well, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
in a lot of ways I think it makes perfect sense because Tsukuroku was the one person who was being true to himself mostly the whole time. So you go back and look at the previous kind of bits in the story. Tsukuroku was Tsukuroku.
Yeah.
It was Yakumo and Miyokichi who were the main ones that were in some ways in this constant state of denial and with their own internal conflicts. Tsukuroku had his flaws, absolutely. Yes. But he wasn't holding himself back. In some ways, the only ways he was being held back was the fact that, you know, if you go and just drink a bunch, you're physically not going to be able to do well and stuff.
Yeah, like towards the end of the first season, that's where he was kind of being held back, and then Yakumo came along and helped him, right?
Right.
You know, but it's this wonderful thing where it's not like everything is made perfect in some sort of like you know, distilled like you know, nothing wrong with it. There's all the quirks and everything that make them them, right? Mm-hmm. That would cause trouble in the real world and kind of cause trouble here too.
Sure. Yeah.
But they've accepted it, right?
Yeah.
And man, that's really cool.
Yeah, it feels really good.
Yeah.
So Miyokichi, having this episode exist
mm-hmm.
in combination with the character of Miyokichi, because when I think back on Miyokichi as a character, I loved and hated her more than any other character in this show, I would say.
Gotcha.
There were multiple moments where Yakumo became my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Sukeroku as a character was the character that I had the most like willing suspension of disbelief. Like I kind of knew what they were going for with his character for the most part, and I readily accepted it because I was like, in some ways he's just kind of a simple boy. He makes sense.
Right. He had that little bit of larger than life, but then also he's going to die, so
right. With Yakumo and Miyokichi, they seemed so complex and human that seeing them in the afterlife, especially having Sukeroku in some ways being the guide, in some ways being the Shinigami and not being the Shinigami at all, because that was just a random possession thing that happened for a little bit because he really liked your Rakugo, and then he just decided to be a dick and started burning down theaters. That bastard.
Right. Hey, it was really because he liked your Rakugo and he wanted Rakugo to happen here. So, he figured if he burned down the theater, then, it'd move over.
Right. But seeing Miyokichi and Yakumo get to talk, having them talk about the past, having Miyokichi also kind of say, screw the apologies. What's the point of that? I didn't come here to see. I don't really care about that. I just want to see your face. That's good enough for me. The idea that Miyokichi, especially, they showed this again later, just kind of this aspect of her character, especially when Kanatsu showed up. And Kanatsu had like this moment of hesitation, and Miyokichi's like, just come in here. And then she hugged her, and it was just like, my heart. Because she's acknowledged that.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I didn't.
They're at peace.
Like, but I didn't rely on people at all. Like, I could have been I could have done things way better in the past. I could have been way more kind to people. But that's it. That's it. There's no like even looming regret of like, this even burdens me now in death. It's like, it's kind of like Sukeroku. It's like, the only thing we can do really is laugh about it.
Yep.
In some ways, we're dead. Only thing we can do really now is just react to it.
Right. And I love the thing that Sukeroku said of Bon, like, if you can't pass on, I can't either. You are the thing that keeps me coming back to you because I need to make sure you're okay. And me and Miyokichi may take us a while to fully cross over. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Right.
And Matsuda being there as like I have no idea how this world works. Matsuda's not necessarily dead.
I hope not.
You know what? Having that be the moment where this happens and Matsuda thanks Yakumo for all this stuff he's done. Oh, my heart.
Yeah.
In some ways, I almost want there to be like this reveal that like Matsuda all along was basically like the eternal spirit guardian. The true god of this world.
He knows not age or
just constantly being there supporting Yakumo.
And yet at the same time, I could totally see it being something where if Yakumo were to die, then he would be like, okay, I've watched over him. I can go now.
I can pass. I can move on now.
Right. I know that he's going to be okay, somehow. So I don't need to be here anymore.
And that would be awesome too. There's a lot in this episode that I felt like was letting us know as the audience that there's a meta closure moment here that is Yakumo's. This is Yakumo's closure episode. The closure episode for the other characters is the last episode, but this one is for Yakumo alone. And there is a lot that needs to be closed up. There were a lot of bits in the Rakugo where it felt like there were little homages to previous Rakugo bits there. And I was just like, oh, I see what you're doing there. But having the Rakugo be, you know, kind of, well, at least Yakumo's Rakugo, being prepared by being done right after Sukeroku's Rakugo. And then Sukeroku giving him basically the send-off. Yeah. That beautiful bit with the paneling and the aspect ratio changing and what have you.
Yeah, there were even like some things that I saw where it was like the gray and white grid for like paint programs when there's nothing there and it's supposed to show that it's transparent, but they actually use that like on the skin. Like it was really interesting.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I
did not see that.
It was like you know how on like paint, like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah. I did not see that.
It was really small. See?
Yeah, I guess so. I just would have compared it to something else, but yeah. Haven't you been the amazing 8th generation Yakumo, a master great enough to silence a crying child? Long, close your eyes. The song is playing. 1, 2, 3, and then...
And, okay, one of the things that I... Like, okay, there are so many things that are just wonderful about this whole scene here, with him doing his final Rakugo. One, the fact that he's doing his final Rakugo. Right? And he's able to finally do it again. And that Shin-chan's there and everything. But I love the fact that he decides to do Jugumu.
Yeah.
Because up till now, you know, early on it was the body store, or the body stores, whatever that word is. Yeah.
Right.
More of the entertainment, but there was always that focus on elegance and everything like that, right? And I feel like that formed a lot of his pride, if you will, with performing and everything. And then as he got older and you know, more jaded, and just the you know, the pain of life set in and everything, and all the burdens that he was carrying, that affected his Rakugo.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, definitely.
You know, so, you know, he did Rakugo about Shinigami and all kinds of things like that, right?
Yeah.
And Jugumu is not at all the kind of thing that he would have ever done as the great Yakumo, right?
But that bit with having the line before this of, you know, the name a person is given can change the course of their life. And the idea of how this whole story started because a child ended up being taken away from the thing that they really wanted to do, and ended up getting a name pushed onto them as they that's good. Rakugo here, to think that this whole journey started because of a child's dream in a way, and then also the charm and innocence of a child being the thing that was kind of taken away. So,
and here he reclaims it.
Yeah, here he reclaims it. He comes full circle. He establishes in some ways the contradiction of where he grew up in the spiritual world, the spirit world, or what have you, and chose to be the 8th generation great Yakumo, fully realized and what have you, and then telling Jugumu with Shin-chan there. And this is something that I thought was really sad in a very kind of specific way, is that, you know, he's coming up with the names and what have you, and it says, how about Yotaro? It's like, oh, don't call him that. And then freaking Shinosuke says, Daddy! And then look at Konatsu just kind of going like, wait, what? like what's wonderful about this, I think there's actually like some really deep things going on right here. The main one is no, don't call him that, he'll end up an idiot. You know, it's the name you give them that you have to think about that really impacts the portion of their life. And the fact that he gave our Yotaro the name Sukeroku, you know, what kind of stuff that did. Then also you have specifically the aspect that this is, you know, Shin-chan in, like a projection or what have you.
Right.
So, of course, they
actually him and his childhood self. Like, who knows?
Right. But just the idea that he responds in this way as if, Daddy! And it's like, oh, that's the name. And then Konatsu's just like, wait, what? But I almost think that there's something really cool going on here where you get this feeling of, in the respect that Yakumo was basically the father to Konatsu that she never had, really. Like, that she had Sukeroku, but it was for such a short time.
Yep.
The actual full raising of her was done by Yakumo.
Yep.
And it's almost as if she wants to echo that and cry out Daddy as well, but to the man on stage. And so she kind of looks over at him and has this moment of like, wait, what? Like, oh. And I don't know. It just feels like there's been this part of Konatsu that's kind of longed to do that in the real world, to call out Daddy, to Yakumo.
And there's a part. So one of the other things that maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, but because they're here, Konatsu and Shin-chan in their kid form, does that, if they're not actually there, if it's just some projection or whatever,
this is all spiritual.
Well, so here's what I'm wondering.
They're not gonna have memory of this in the real world.
No. Yeah, not well, not consciously. What I'm wondering is because if the gift wouldn't mean as much if it's just some illusion or whatever, right? If they're not actually there, if they're not actually hearing them. And of course, it wouldn't be something that would be conscious, but there were a few things that I want to point out. One is that Shin-chan knew Jugumu. Maybe not, but what if it was something where somehow indirectly across time and space from beyond the grave, Yakumo choosing Jugumu here ended up influencing Shin-chan. And Konatsu, hearing it, she ended up choosing to do Jugumu. At a point when, now granted, she was doing the Rakugo for herself, but you mentioned...
Well, Shin-chan was alive at the time. Like, he was in the audience at that time.
With Jugumu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. No, I'm talking about before, when, because he was just like saying it, and everyone was like surprised, like, whoa, Jugumu. But that was the first time that we as an audience had seen it.
Right, but they had said that at his school they would perform it all the time.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's more of a thematic thing than an actual plot thing.
I love the idea of basically the voice of Yakumo after he's come to accept everything in the emotional journey that he's had, and the realization and the perspective that he has now that he's dead.
Yeah.
Being able to speak to the people that in a lot of cases he most wanted to speak to but couldn't because of the circumstantial things, because of life and all of that. And he's able to speak to them in their most innocent, truest state. Okay. Where they as well are free from that.
Okay.
And maybe that's not something that's intended. Maybe I'm just reading way too much into it. But I like to think that because
I don't like completely disagree with it or anything. I'm just saying that I think that this episode is far more symbolic and for the purpose of Yakumo's resolution than it is. If anything, it unveils maybe a little bit about the characters that are still alive, like Konatsu and Shin-chan and hopefully Matsuda. I want Matsuda to either be eternal in the real world or eternal in all worlds,
Yeah.
But that's it. Redundant. But there is definitely a cool way that they can do this kind of thing that you're saying, with having the things that happen here have some effect,
even if it's not measurable or whatever, and it's not like they Shinchan and Konatsu had dreams as kids of, going to, some spirited away place, where there was everybody there.
Right.
I'm not saying that, right? But the idea that there was somehow that somehow it reached them, in some way, shape, or form.
In some ways, I feel like that's kind of the point of this little cushion thing there. They kind of had a little bit of like, here's a spiritual thing that does this. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course there is. Because this place is not for the people that are alive. This is for those that have passed. So therefore, the benefit of having this person go there, regardless of whether or not they remember it or anything, it's very much for the person that wills that person into the cushion, basically. It's not for the purpose of that person to, carry some message. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Like, right. Well,
or even to not absorb anything subconsciously.
Not to carry the message, but for have the message be delivered to them, even if they don't necessarily have a, literal way of consciously receiving it.
Sure. And I think that that's a cool thing, because the first time we saw Shinchan, that was what he was singing, was Jugeme Jugeme.
Right.
Pretty sure that's what he was doing.
Yeah, I believe so. When he was at least in the not just a baby stage.
Well, yeah, I don't even think we saw him as a baby.
Oh.
I don't know if we did.
Oh, maybe we didn't. For some reason, I thought we saw him like a couple times, like cradled in her arms or something like that. But maybe I could be wrong.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
But
yeah, that could be something. That's rather cool.
One of the other things that did kind of blow me away when I was thinking about it here, not for Jugeme Jugeme specifically, but with how Rakugo sets up the Rakugo pieces that it tells, that the characters tell.
So how the show sets up the pieces of Rakugo.
The pieces itself and how it uses them. Because if you think about it, using a whole story as like representations of what's going on for characters, that's really cool. It's also very expensive in a way, right? Because you need to bring the audience in through the story, and there's the cadence of the story, the build up and all that stuff. But in the reuse of stories, for the first one, it's usually something that applies to the characters and something that they're specifically feeling within the story.
Okay.
But then they can use it after that for not specific parts of the story. I mean, they could if they wanted to and skip to those parts, but more of the fact that this story is happening, because we remember enough of it so that then it sets a tone for what's happening here, even if specific things might not directly apply as much. They wouldn't be relying on us to remember a specific line of a Rakugo story unless they actually like went to it and showed it. But that's just something that I think is really cool, because it's another layer of wonderful poetry, beauty, application that this other thing is being brought into the story that you don't need to know anything about when you come into the show. Right. You don't need to know anything about Rakugo. But not only are you going to learn some Rakugo pieces that I'm guessing are real, but you also get to have them be double dipped on, essentially, which is just
for sure
awesome.
With regards to the final episode coming up here, so do we basically just have a look at Kanatsu and Yotaro, aka Sukeroku, with just their family, and it's just a family episode? That would be wonderful. In some ways, one of the things that I've been very much a fan of, kind of how they've set up the show structurally. There's so many themes of rebirth or getting it right the next time. The idea that we're then discussing the reincarnation, the idea of these beings that have now transcended their bodies and are now moving on to their to whatever comes next. Structurally, a lot of the characters in the story kind of feel like reincarnations of past characters, and because of the angle of how spiritual this very important episode in the show was, I can't imagine that on rewatch, well, let me use it in a positive. I imagine that on rewatch, there will be so many like, oh, that's definitely a hint about how all this has happened before.
Yeah.
And all this will happen again. But all of this is happening in a way which is redeemed based on the differences from the previous story.
Right. Well, and if you think about it, like, because okay, I don't know what Shogen Roku Rakugo Shinju means in entirety, but there's something.
I think it's the descending stories.
Right, descending stories, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's been happening so far, right? With each generation, starting with, Yakumo and Tsukuroku's kids.
Sure.
Right? And then them growing up and all of that, and then getting old and, having, it passing on to the next generation, right? And now there's all this stuff passing on to the next generation with, with Yotaro and Konatsu having, a child and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. But that's it. That's our second to last episode of season 2. I'm pretty sure, basically based on this, though, that this is going to be the end of the show. There's little story that remains to be told in a way that feels thematically appropriate to the previous season, especially.
Yes. Right.
With Yakumo passing away.
They could do an ending where, like, it's sort of like, and this story continues, kind of a thing. Like,
it continues to descend.
Exactly. Because
time keeps moving. Characters and stories will continue to live and be told. And there's nothing specific about this story that means it has to come to an end. But if we're going to look at the story of Yakumo as the thematic anchor for the whole narrative, him passing away is the nail in the coffin, so to speak. It is now done, and he got a happy ending. And in some ways, because of what happened in the previous episode, and because of the bit with him and Konatsu being together one last time, so to speak, here, that is a sufficient way for him and her to have closure. And then maybe in the next episode, it's less about them having closure, but like you're saying, it's about how the story continues, about their kids, about Rakugo itself and the idea of passing on stories.
Sure.
And maybe in some ways that's what it'll be. It'll be about the parents telling the stories of these people that came before, and how they influenced their lives before they were even born. So
showing that Rakugo isn't dead. Like Hisan's new stories and things like that.
Rakugo is life in a lot of ways. We basically get put onto the stage. It's scary. There's a lot of people watching. We don't know what we're doing, but we just start delivering the story. We figure out a way to interact and intermingle with the environment and the people in it. We find a good vibe, and then we keep it going as long as we can and as long as we want to, really. So, yeah. But, dang, this is a show, y'all.
Yep, it is. It is indeed.
So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the final episode's reaction and discussion right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. And you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yep. I did a thing that you totally, haven't heard about before. I wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines, and it's awesome, and it's on Amazon. Link in the description. Go check it out.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.